I sat across from Derek Walsh in his downtown Philadelphia studio that Tuesday evening, watching his hands shake as he positioned his computer monitor. He kept glancing at me, then away, like a man about to deliver terrible news. I thought maybe the wedding photos had come out badly. I thought maybe he wanted more money. I never imagined what he was actually going to show me. He finally spoke, his voice barely steady. "Mrs. Hammond, I almost deleted these. I wish I had." Then he turned the screen toward me, and my entire world shattered in an instant. The monitor glowed in the dimly lit studio, and my eyes struggled to focus on what I was seeing. It was a wedding photo from 3 months ago. My son Tyler's wedding. The image showed the ceremony in progress. Guests seated in neat rows at the garden venue, late afternoon sunlight filtering through the trees. But there, partially visible behind a decorative trellis on the left side of the frame, stood my new daughter-in-law Cassidy in her ivory wedding gown. She was talking to a man, not my son. A tall man with brown hair, wearing a gray suit that definitely was not part of the wedding party colors we had chosen. My hands went cold. "I don't understand. Who is that?" Derek's jaw tightened. He clicked to the next photo. Same man, different angle. This time the image showed Cassidy during what should have been the father-daughter dance. The timestamp read 7:42 in the evening. But instead of being on the dance floor, she stood near the venue's back entrance with this stranger. Her hand rested on his chest. The gesture was intimate, familiar, wrong. "Keep looking," Derek said quietly, clicking through image after image. I counted 12 photos total, 12 separate moments throughout the ceremony and reception where Cassidy had disappeared from the main event to meet this man, during the processional, during the toasts, during the cake cutting. Each time, they stood close together, touching in ways that made my stomach turn. In one particularly clear shot, his hand cupped her face while she smiled up at him with an expression I had never seen her wear around my son. "The timestamps," I whispered, pointing at the screen with a trembling finger. She was gone during all the important moments. Exactly. Derek pulled up a document on a second monitor. "This is the guest list Cassidy provided me before the wedding. I cross-referenced every face in my photos with this list. Mrs. Hammond. This man is not on it. He was not an invited guest. But he is in every third photo I took that day." The studio suddenly felt too warm. I pulled at the collar of my cardigan, trying to breathe normally. 3 months. I had spent 3 months believing my son had married the perfect woman. Cassidy was a pediatric nurse. Sweet. Devoted. She always called me Mom with that gentle smile. She brought homemade cookies to Sunday dinners. She laughed at Tyler's terrible jokes and looked at him like he hung the moon. Except apparently, she looked at someone else the same way. At her own wedding. "Why are you showing me this?" My voice came out hoarse. "Why not go to Tyler directly?" Derek leaned back in his chair, rubbing his face with both hands. "My sister went through a divorce 2 years ago. Her husband was cheating the entire marriage. She had no idea until it was too late. Lost everything in the settlement because she could not prove anything." He looked at me with tired, honest eyes. "I could not stay silent, Mrs. Hammond. But I also did not want to blow up your son's life without being absolutely certain of what I was seeing. I thought maybe you could identify this man. Maybe there is an innocent explanation." I studied the photos again, hoping desperately for that innocent explanation. Maybe he was a cousin. Maybe he was an old friend from nursing school. Maybe the intimate touches were just unfortunate camera angles, making something innocent look suspicious. But I knew better. "A mother knows. Can you send these to me?" I asked. "I need to figure out who he is before I tell Tyler anything. I cannot break my son's heart without proof." Derek nodded and pulled out his phone, fingers moving quickly across the screen. "I am sending them to your email now. Mrs. Hammond, I know this is not my business, but be careful. If Cassidy has been hiding something this big, confronting her directly could be dangerous." His phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced at the screen and his face went pale. "What is it?" He turned the phone toward me. A notification glowed on the screen. Cassidy Hammond had just posted a 5-star review of Walsh photography on social media. 20 minutes ago. Right when I had been sitting in this studio looking at evidence of her betrayal. The timestamp felt like ice water down my spine. How would she know I am here? I breathed. We stared at each other, the implications settling over us like a heavy fog. Either someone had told Cassidy I was coming to Derek's studio, or she had been tracking me somehow. Either option was terrifying. My phone buzzed in my purse. I fumbled for it with numb fingers. A text message from Cassidy lit up the screen. "Hi, Mom. Tyler and I would love to have you over for dinner tomorrow night. It has been too long." 7 o'clock? The cheerful tone. The perfect timing. The casual invitation that felt anything but casual now, Derek whispered. "That is not a coincidence." "No," I agreed, my mouth dry as dust. "It is not." I typed back with shaking hands. "That sounds wonderful, sweetie. I will be there." Derek walked me to my car in the parking garage, both of us glancing around like criminals fleeing a crime scene. The November air was sharp and cold, but I barely felt it. My mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. If Cassidy knew I had seen the photos, what would she do? If she was hiding an affair, what else was she hiding? And how could I possibly sit across from her at dinner tomorrow and pretend everything was fine? I sat in my car for 20 minutes after Derek went back inside, staring at the photos he had sent to my email. I zoomed in on the mystery man's face. Handsome, mid-30s, wedding ring on his left hand. That detail made everything worse somehow. Not just an affair, a married affair. Or maybe he was married to someone else entirely while Cassidy married my son. The thought was absurd. Impossible. People did not do things like that in real life. Except the photos did not lie. I drove home to my empty house in the suburbs. The same house where I had raised Tyler. The same house that had felt too quiet since my husband Robert died 5 years ago. I poured myself a glass of wine I did not drink and sat at the kitchen table until after midnight, studying every pixel of those 12 photographs, trying to find an explanation that would let me sleep that night. I never found one. The next evening, I pulled into the driveway of Tyler and Cassidy's new home in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, at exactly 7 o'clock. The house was a beautiful colonial with gray shutters and a wraparound porch. They had closed on it just 6 weeks ago, giddy with excitement about starting their life together. Tyler had given me a tour, proudly showing off the master bedroom with its attached bathroom, the finished basement he planned to turn into a home theater, the backyard where they would host summer barbecues. Looking at it now, knowing what I knew, the house seemed like a stage set, beautiful and hollow. Cassidy opened the door before I could knock, wearing a cream-colored sweater and jeans, her blonde hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. She looked exactly like what she was supposed to be. A young wife, happy and welcoming, excited to host her mother-in-law for dinner. "Mom, I am so glad you could come." She hugged me, and I forced myself not to stiffen. Her perfume was something floral and expensive. Tyler had probably bought it for her. Inside, the house smelled like roasted chicken and herbs. Tyler emerged from the kitchen wearing an apron that said Grill Master that I had given him last Christmas. My heart squeezed at the sight of him. 32 years old, my only child. He had his father's dark hair and solid build, my green eyes and quick smile. He looked so happy it hurt. "Hey, Mom," he kissed my cheek. "Hope you are hungry." Cassidy made her famous herb chicken. We settled around their dining room table, expensive dishes I did not recognize arranged perfectly with cloth napkins and fresh flowers. Cassidy must have spent hours preparing everything, or maybe she always kept her home this pristine. I realized with a jolt that I barely knew my daughter-in-law. Tyler had met her at a hospital fundraiser just 11 months ago. They were engaged after 5 months. Married after 8. I had chalked it up to love at first sight, to Tyler finally finding the right person after years of failed relationships. Now I wondered what the rush had really been about. "So, Mom," Tyler said, passing me the green beans, "Cassidy and I have some exciting news." My stomach dropped. "Please do not say she is pregnant. Please." Cassidy reached over and squeezed Tyler's hand, beaming. "We have started trying for a baby." The room tilted slightly. I gripped my fork to steady myself. "That is wonderful," I heard myself say. "How exciting." "We know it is fast," Cassidy said, her voice warm and sweet as honey. "But when you know, you know. Right, Mom? You and Robert got married young, too." She had done her research. Robert and I had married when I was 23. But we had known each other since high school. We had built our relationship on years of friendship and trust, not an 8-month whirlwind. I smiled and nodded and made the appropriate sounds while my mind screamed warnings I could not voice. If Cassidy was having an affair, a baby would trap Tyler forever, complicate everything, make leaving nearly impossible. "Actually, Mom," Tyler continued, completely oblivious to my internal crisis, "Cassidy mentioned something I wanted to ask you about." My hand froze halfway to my water glass. Cassidy's expression shifted subtly. Still sweet, still warm, but something calculating flickered in her eyes. "I hope you do not mind, but Derek Walsh called me yesterday." "The photographer?" My heart began to pound. "He said you came to the studio and seemed very distressed about some photos." Her voice carried just the right note of concern. "He said you were making accusations about me." "Mom, are you okay? Is this about Dad?" Tyler looked confused, turning from his wife to his mother. "What photos? Mom, what is she talking about?" I opened my mouth, but Cassidy kept going, steamrolling over whatever I might have said. "I did not want to upset you, Tyler, but your mother apparently thinks she saw something inappropriate in our wedding pictures. Derek said she was very agitated. He was worried about her state of mind." The words hit me like physical blows. State of mind. Agitated. Worried. She was framing me as unstable before I could even defend myself. "That is not what happened," I said, fighting to keep my voice level. "Derek showed me photos of you with another man. Throughout the entire wedding, you kept disappearing to meet him." Tyler's eyebrows drew together. "Another man? What are you talking about?" "Let me call Derek right now," Cassidy said, already pulling out her phone. "We can clear this up." She dialed, put it on speaker, and Derek's voice filled the dining room after 3 rings. But it sounded wrong, strained, different from yesterday. "Derek, hi. It is Cassidy Hammond. I have you on speaker with my husband and mother-in-law. Can you explain what happened yesterday when Bria came to your studio?" There was a pause. Then Derek said, "Mrs. Hammond, I apologize if I worried you unnecessarily. I was showing you photos where Cassidy was talking to my assistant, Marcus. He helped with the second camera that day. I think there was a misunderstanding about what you were seeing." My blood turned to ice. "That is not what you said. You told me he was not on the guest list. You said—" "I am sorry for the confusion," Derek interrupted, his words coming fast and rehearsed. "Marcus was hired last minute. I should have been clearer. I hope I did not cause any problems." The line went dead. Tyler stared at me, hurt and confusion warring on his face. Cassidy set her phone down gently, her expression the picture of compassionate concern. "Mom, maybe we should talk to your doctor. Early onset dementia can cause confusion and paranoia. Dad's death was traumatic. It is okay to need help." "I am not confused," I snapped, reaching for my own phone. "Derek sent me the photos. I will show you right now." I opened my messages, scrolled to my conversation with Derek from yesterday. It was gone. The entire text thread had vanished. I checked my email. The photos he had sent were not there either. My trash folder was empty. It was like yesterday had never happened. Tyler's face had shifted from confusion to pity. That was worse than anger. So much worse. "Mom," he said gently, "you forgot my birthday last month. And last week when we talked on the phone, you called me Robert. Twice. I did not forget your birthday. And I never called you Robert." But even as I said it, doubt crept in. Had I? Was I losing track of things? No. This was not real. This was a setup. "It is okay to admit you need support," Cassidy said softly. She reached across the table as if to take my hand, but I pulled away, Tyler and I love you. We want to help. I looked at my son, at the worry etched into his features, and realized with sickening clarity that Cassidy had been building this narrative for weeks, maybe months, planting seeds of doubt about my mental state, fabricating small incidents, waiting for the moment when she would need to discredit me. And it had worked. I think I should go, I said, standing on unsteady legs. Tyler stood too. Mom, please. Let us help you find a good therapist. Someone who specializes in grief counseling. I left without another word, my vision blurred with tears. I refused to let fall until I was in my car. In my rearview mirror, I saw Tyler and Cassidy standing on their porch. His arm was around her shoulders. She looked up at him, saying something that made him nod and pull her closer. I had come here to protect my son. Instead, I had played right into her hands. The next 2 weeks passed in a fog of frustrated investigation and growing isolation. I went back to Derek's studio the morning after that disastrous dinner. A handwritten sign hung on the locked door. Closed for renovation. Reopen date TBA. I called his business number and got a disconnected message. His cell phone went straight to voicemail, and he never called back. Derek had disappeared, scared off, or paid off, or threatened into silence. I tried researching Cassidy online, hunched over my laptop at the kitchen table with cold coffee and pages of scribbled notes. Her social media profiles were strangely sparse. Pretty photos of her and Tyler, smiling at restaurants and hiking trails, professional headshots in her nursing scrubs. But nothing from before 2 years ago. No childhood photos, no college friends, no family except for the handful who had attended the wedding, and I realized now I had barely spoken to any of them that day. Her nursing license was legitimate. I checked. Cassidy Morrison, registered nurse, Pennsylvania State Board of Nursing. Everything appeared normal on the surface, but something was deeply wrong underneath. I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop on Friday afternoon, still scrolling through archived web pages and public records, when my best friend Janet slid into the chair across from me. We had been friends for 30 years, ever since our sons played Little League together. She had held my hand through Robert's funeral. I had held hers through her divorce. We knew each other's secrets and sorrows and dreams. But today, she looked uncomfortable. Honey, she began, stirring sugar into her latte with more focus than necessary. Tyler called me yesterday. My hands stilled on my keyboard. Oh? He is worried about you. He said you made some accusations about Cassidy at dinner last week. That you have been forgetful lately. She finally met my eyes. Bria, are you okay? Really okay? Did Cassidy call you too? I asked, already knowing the answer. Janet's hesitation told me everything. She reached out because she cares about you. She asked me to keep an eye on you as a friend. She is worried you might be having some kind of breakdown. I closed my laptop slowly. And you believe her. I believe you have been struggling since Robert died. That is normal. And honestly, at book club last month, you did seem a little confused. You asked about a book we had already discussed the week before. Had I? I searched my memory and came up empty. But that meant nothing. Memory was unreliable, especially when someone was systematically gaslighting you into questioning your own sanity. Janet, I said carefully, what if I told you Cassidy is not who she says she is? That I have evidence she was meeting another man at her own wedding? My best friend of 3 decades looked at me with pity. Oh, sweetie, that sounds like paranoia. Have you talked to your doctor? Maybe you should increase your antidepressant dosage. I left the coffee shop and sat in my car in the parking lot, watching people walk by with their normal problems and normal lives. Cassidy had poisoned my relationships so thoroughly that my own best friend thought I was mentally unstable. Tyler stopped answering my calls as quickly. When he did pick up, conversations were brief and careful, like he was talking to a fragile elderly relative who might shatter at any moment. He canceled our standing Sunday brunch twice, claiming he and Cassidy had other plans. The third week, he simply stopped responding to my texts asking to reschedule. I drove to their house on Friday afternoon, needing to see my son, needing to try one more time to make him understand. Tyler's car was not in the driveway, but Cassidy's blue sedan sat in the garage. She answered the door in yoga pants and a tank top, blonde hair piled on top of her head. Without Tyler there, her face transformed. The sweet smile vanished. Her eyes went cold and flat. "You should have stayed quiet, Bria." "Not Mom. Not anymore." "What do you want from my son?" I demanded, too tired to play games. "What everyone wants. Security, comfort, money." She leaned against the doorframe like we were discussing the weather. "Tyler loves me. He will choose me. They always do. Who is the man in the photos? That is none of your business." But her smirk suggested she enjoyed having secrets I could not unravel. A car pulled into the driveway behind me. I turned and saw a silver SUV. A man stepped out. The man from the wedding photos. Tall, brown-haired, wearing khakis and a polo shirt like he had just left the golf course. My pulse spiked with vindication and terror. Cassidy's expression did not change. "This is my brother, Graham. Graham. This is Tyler's mother, Bria. Brother." She was claiming this man was her brother. But I saw the way he looked at her. That was not brotherly affection. And I noticed his left hand as he nodded at me coldly. Wedding ring. Car seat visible in the back of his SUV. "Cassidy, we need to go," Graham said, his voice clipped. "The appointment is at 3. They were leaving together. In the middle of the afternoon, while Tyler was at work. "You should leave now, Bria," Cassidy said, her voice sharp. "Tyler is on his way home. You do not want him to think you are harassing us." I walked to my car on wooden legs. As I reached for the door handle, I saw Tyler's sedan turning onto their street. The timing was too perfect. Cassidy must have texted him the moment I arrived. Graham's SUV pulled out quickly, disappearing around the corner. Cassidy's face transformed back into worried wife mode. She rushed out of the house, phone in hand, tears already forming. Tyler parked and jumped out, his face tight with anger as he saw me and his crying wife. "What did you do?" he demanded. "I just came to talk to you." She showed up and started yelling at me again. Cassidy sobbed. "She said horrible things about our marriage." "Tyler, I do not feel safe." "That is not true. Your brother just left. Or whoever he really is." "That was Graham." Tyler's voice rose. "Her brother. He was at the wedding." "Mom, are you seriously doing this?" I tried to explain about the photos, about the body language, about the timing of everything. But Tyler's face closed off. He had already decided I was the problem. 3 days later, a process server knocked on my door. I signed for the papers with numb fingers. Temporary restraining order. I could not come within 500 feet of Tyler and Cassidy's home. Could not contact Cassidy directly. Court hearing scheduled for 2 weeks. The petition claimed I had been harassing and threatening Cassidy, that I was experiencing mental health issues following my husband's death, that I posed a potential danger, and the kicker. Cassidy was pregnant, 8 weeks along. She needed to protect herself and her unborn child from my unstable behavior. I called Tyler immediately. He answered on the 5th ring. "Mom." His voice was flat, exhausted. "A baby?" "Tyler, is it true?" "Yes. We found out last week. We were going to tell you at Sunday dinner, but you have made that impossible." A pause. "Cassidy is terrified of you now. I never thought I would say this, but I agree with the restraining order. You need help, and until you get it, you need to stay away from my family." My family. Not our family. His family was Cassidy and the baby now. "Tyler, please. I am done defending you to her, Mom. I am done making excuses. Get help. For your sake and mine." He hung up. I sat in my living room as the sun set, restraining order papers spread across the coffee table, and understood that I had lost my son. Cassidy had taken him completely, isolated him from the one person who might save him from whatever trap he had walked into. And now I was legally barred from even trying. The restraining order hearing took place on a gray November morning in a windowless courtroom that smelled like floor polish and defeat. My lawyer, Stephen Kendall, sat beside me at the defendant's table. Stephen had been Robert's colleague at the law firm before Robert got sick. He had come to the funeral, helped me sort through estate paperwork. He was doing this as a favor, charging me a fraction of his usual rate, and I could see the concern in his eyes every time he looked at me. Across the aisle, Cassidy sat with her lawyer, looking small and vulnerable in a navy dress, her hand resting protectively over a barely visible baby bump. Tyler sat behind her in the gallery, his jaw set. The hearing was quick and brutal. Cassidy testified in a soft, shaking voice about how I had ambushed her at her home multiple times, how I had made wild accusations about her having an affair, how I had frightened her with my erratic behavior. She cried when she mentioned the baby, saying she was terrified for her child's safety. Her lawyer presented evidence. Text messages from my phone containing threatening language. I had never sent those messages. Photos showing me outside their house on dates I had not been there. Someone was manufacturing evidence, but I had no way to prove it. Tyler testified too. My own son stood in that witness box and described a mother I did not recognize. Someone forgetful and paranoid. Someone who called him by his dead father's name. Someone who invented conspiracy theories about his wife. His voice cracked when he said he was worried about me, that he wanted me to get help, but that Cassidy's safety came first. Stephen tried to poke holes in their story. He really did. But we had nothing concrete to counter with. No proof that Derek had originally told me something different. No evidence of Cassidy's mysterious past. Just my word against theirs, and I was the one who looked unstable. The judge, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, granted a 6-month restraining order extension. I was also placed on probation and ordered to undergo a psychological evaluation. Outside the courthouse, Stephen walked me to my car. "Bria, I need to be honest with you. If you violate this order, you could go to jail. You need to step back and let this go." "Let what go? Protecting my son from a con artist?" "You do not have proof she is a con artist. You have wedding photos of her talking to someone who might be her brother, and a photographer who recanted his story." His voice was gentle but firm. "I know you believe something is wrong, but belief is not evidence. And right now, you look like an obsessed, grieving widow who cannot let her son move on with his life." He left me standing in the courthouse parking lot, and I knew he was right. From the outside, I looked exactly like what Cassidy had painted me to be. The court-ordered psychological evaluation took place the following week. Dr. Helen Ramirez was a clinical psychologist with kind eyes and an office filled with plants and soft lighting, designed to make people feel comfortable sharing their deepest problems. I tried to explain everything rationally. The photos. Derek's initial reaction. The timing of Cassidy's responses. Graham's suspicious behavior. But even to my own ears, it sounded paranoid. It sounded like a woman who had lost her husband and could not handle losing her son to another woman. Dr. Ramirez listened patiently, taking notes. At the end of our session, she diagnosed me with adjustment disorder, with mixed anxiety and depressive features, complicated by unresolved grief. She noted paranoid ideation that could be related to the stress of my son's new marriage triggering abandonment fears. She recommended weekly therapy and continued monitoring. I walked out of her office with a diagnosis that confirmed everything Cassidy had been telling people about me. My community turned away like water running off glass. Neighbors I had known for 25 years suddenly became very busy when I ran into them at the grocery store. Someone left a pamphlet about senior mental health services in my mailbox, anonymous but well-meaning. My book club gently suggested I take a break from meetings until I felt better. Janet and my sister Patricia staged an intervention one evening, showing up at my door with compassionate faces and firm voices. "You need to accept reality," Patricia said, sitting on my couch with her hands folded in her lap. "Tyler is married. Cassidy is pregnant. They are building a life together. Your job as his mother is to support him, not terrorize his wife." "I am not terrorizing anyone. That is not what the court decided," Janet said softly. "Honey, We love you. But this obsession is destroying your life. And for what? Because you saw some wedding photos you misinterpreted? They meant well, they truly did. But they could not see what I saw because Cassidy had made sure no one would believe me, even if I showed them proof. The legal fees had cost me $15,000 so far. The private investigator I had not even hired yet would cost more. I was living on Robert's life insurance and my teacher's pension. And for the first time since his death, I worried about money. I sat at my kitchen table one evening, surrounded by bills and court documents and printouts of Cassidy's social media, and seriously considered giving up. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe I was seeing patterns that did not exist. Maybe grief had broken something in my brain that made me suspicious of a perfectly nice woman who made my son happy. Then my phone dinged with a Facebook message from someone named Bethany Whitmore. I saw your name in some paperwork. I think we need to talk. My husband has been lying to me. Please call me. A phone number followed. I stared at the message for 2 full days, afraid it was another trap. Bethany Whitmore. The name meant nothing to me, but that last name, Whitmore, Graham Whitmore, the man Cassidy claimed was her brother. On the 3rd day, with nothing left to lose, I called the number. A woman answered on the 2nd ring, her voice cautious. Hello? This is Bria Hammond. You sent me a message on Facebook. Oh, thank God. Relief flooded her words. Can we meet? I need to show you something. But not over the phone. We agreed to meet at a diner in Wilmington, Delaware, halfway between us. I drove there the next afternoon, hands clenched on the steering wheel, alternating between hope and terror that this was an elaborate setup. Bethany Whitmore was already in a back booth when I arrived. Mid-30s, brown hair pulled into a ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweatshirt that looked like she had grabbed the first thing out of her closet. Dark circles under her eyes, the look of someone who had not been sleeping. Thank you for coming, she said as I slid into the booth across from her. I was not sure you would. Why did you contact me? She pulled out her phone and opened a Photos app, turning the screen toward me. Does this man look familiar? It was Graham, standing in front of my son's house. The photo was taken from a car window, slightly blurry, but definitely him. That is my husband, Bethany said. Graham. I followed him there last week because he has been lying about where he goes. He claims he is working late, but I checked with his office. They said he has been leaving early 3 times a week for months. My mouth went dry. How did you get my name? I found paperwork in his car. Legal documents with your name on them. Something about a restraining order. She looked down at her coffee cup. I have been married to Graham for 9 years. We have 2 daughters, 6 and 4. I always suspected he was unfaithful, but I could never prove it. Then about a year ago, he started acting different. Distracted, secretive, money moving around in ways that did not make sense. She pulled out more photos. Graham entering Tyler and Cassidy's house. Graham leaving with a small bag. Time stamped from different days over the past 3 weeks. Who lives in that house? Bethany asked. My son and his wife. Her name is Cassidy. She claims Graham is her brother. Bethany's face went white. He does not have a sister. He is an only child. We stared at each other across the scarred diner table. 2 women who had stumbled into the same nightmare from different directions. I need to show you something, Bethany said. She pulled a folder from her bag and slid it across the table. I found this in our safe deposit box. I was not supposed to know about it. I opened the folder. Inside was a marriage certificate. State of Maryland. 7 years ago. Graham Joseph Whitmore and Cassidy Ann Whitmore. They are married. I breathed. We're married? Are married? I do not know anymore. Bethany's voice shook. Graham made me sign papers last month. He said we were refinancing the house. I was stupid. I did not read them carefully. I think maybe I signed away my rights to something. If Graham and Cassidy are married, then her marriage to my son is not legal. That is bigamy. She could go to prison. I know. Bethany twisted her napkin between her hands. But I am afraid to report it. Graham has threatened me before. He gets violent when he is cornered. I have no money of my own. no family nearby. If I expose him and she is gone, what happens to my daughters and me? I understood her fear. But I also understood that Cassidy was pregnant with my son's child. Or claiming to be. Was that even real? Was anything real? We sat in that diner for 2 hours, comparing notes, building a picture of something far more sinister than a simple affair. This was calculated, organized. Cassidy had married Graham 7 years ago. Then she married my son while still married to Graham. What was the end game? Tyler's money? His inheritance from his father? We need to go to the police, I said. Bethany's phone dinged. She looked at the screen, and all color drained from her face. What is it? She turned the phone toward me. Text message from Graham. I know where you are. Get home now. We will discuss your betrayal. Bethany stood so fast she knocked over her water glass. I have to go. I should not have contacted you. Please do not call me again. She ran out of the diner, leaving the marriage certificate on the table. I sat there alone, looking at this proof that Cassidy was living a double life, and realized that going to the authorities might get Bethany hurt, might get me dismissed as the crazy ex-mother-in-law with a vendetta, might get my son even more deeply entrenched in defending his wife. That night, an email arrived from Tyler's lawyer. Tyler and Cassidy were suing me for defamation and emotional distress. They were seeking $50,000 in damages for my campaign of harassment and lies about Cassidy. The email included a list of people I had allegedly told about Cassidy's affair. Janet, Patricia, my book club, Tyler's coworkers. I had not spoken to any of Tyler's coworkers, but someone had, using my name. I was being framed systematically and completely. And I had no way to prove my innocence because Cassidy and Graham were always one step ahead, manufacturing evidence faster than I could defend against it. I sat in my dark living room, the marriage certificate on the coffee table, and realized I had reached the absolute bottom, legally barred from my son, facing criminal probation, being sued for money I did not have, my reputation destroyed. Anyone who tried to help me got threatened into silence. Cassidy had won. The defamation lawsuit became my new nightmare. Stephen advised me to settle, to pay whatever Cassidy and Tyler wanted just to make it go away. But $50,000 would bankrupt me. I would have to sell the house Robert and I had bought 30 years ago, where we had raised Tyler, where I had nursed Robert through his final illness. I cannot pay it, I told Stephen in his office. I do not have that kind of money. Then we go to trial, he said grimly. And Bria, I need to be honest. We will probably lose. They have documentation of harassment. You have a restraining order against you, a psychiatric diagnosis. No concrete proof of anything you are claiming about Cassidy. I left his office and drove home in a daze. It was mid-December now. Christmas lights twinkled on houses in my neighborhood. Last year, Tyler and I had put up decorations together, his first Christmas without his father. This year, I would spend it alone while my son celebrated with his pregnant wife and her criminal husband/brother. The community shunning had become complete. My book club removed me from their email list. Janet stopped responding to my texts. Patricia sent a brief message saying she needed space from me until I got help. Former teaching colleagues I ran into at the store made awkward small talk and hurried away. Only Stephen still treated me like a rational human being, and even he looked at me sometimes like he was not entirely sure. I was sitting at my kitchen table on a Friday evening, reviewing financial statements and trying to figure out if I could afford to keep fighting, when someone knocked on my door. It was Derek Walsh. He looked terrible. Thin. Exhausted. Jumpy. He glanced over his shoulder before speaking. Can I come in? I need to make sure no one followed me. I let him inside, my heart pounding. Derek went straight to my windows and closed all the blinds before he would sit down. I am so sorry, he said, his voice hoarse. For everything. For recanting. For disappearing. For leaving you to deal with this alone. What happened to you? After I showed you those photos, Cassidy came to my studio. Graham was with her. They threatened to destroy my business. Fake reviews. Lawsuits. They knew things about me. Personal things. My home address. Where my sister works. They made it very clear what would happen if I did not cooperate. He pulled a USB drive from his pocket and set it on my table. But then Cassidy offered me $10,000 to recant my story and delete everything. I took it. I was 3 months behind on rent. My equipment was about to be repossessed. Shame colored his voice. I told myself you would find another way to prove it. That it was not my responsibility. But I could not live with it. My sister told me I was helping a predator. What is on the drive? Everything. All the original wedding photos. My notes. Security footage from my studio showing Cassidy and Graham threatening me. The check she gave me. I never cashed it. He pulled an envelope from his jacket. I also recorded our conversation on my phone. I have audio of them threatening me and discussing how they needed to neutralize you. Hope flared in my chest, bright and painful. This could change everything. There is more. Derek pulled up something on his phone. I have been investigating on my own. I found an old website for a wedding photography business Cassidy used to run. It is archived, deleted, but I found it. She was running scams, targeting wealthy men at weddings, using her sweet nurse persona to seduce them. Multiple complaints online from men who lost money or had their lives destroyed. He showed me screenshots. Different names, but the photos were definitely Cassidy. Younger, different hair colors, but the same face. Same smile. One guy from Connecticut almost pressed charges for fraud, but he dropped it. I found others. At least 6 in the past 8 years. Tyler is not her first victim. This is what she does. My hands shook as I held his phone, reading through complaint after complaint. Cassidy Morrison, Cassidy Brennan, Cassidy Hayes. She changed her name, changed her story, found her marks and bled them dry. Derek's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. Cassidy's voice filled my kitchen, cold and sharp. Hi, Derek. Bethany Whitmore had a terrible accident tonight. Fell down her stairs. She is in the hospital. Critical condition. It would be so tragic if something happened to you too. My blood turned to ice. I know you are at Bria's house right now, Cassidy continued. That is very interesting. Bria has a restraining order, you know. She is not supposed to have visitors helping her violate it. One call to the police, Derek. One call. The line went dead. Derek and I stared at each other in horror. Bethany had been attacked, pushed down the stairs, maybe killed. We need to go to the police, Derek said, standing up. Right now, before they do something to us too. And tell them what? I demanded. That we have evidence they will claim is manufactured? That my daughter-in-law is a serial con artist and I am not actually crazy despite multiple professionals saying otherwise? Derek, they will arrest me for violating the restraining order the second I walk into that station. Then what do we do? I looked at the USB drive on my table, at the screenshots on his phone, at all this evidence that proved I was right, but that could so easily be dismissed as the desperate fabrications of an obsessed woman and a photographer she had bribed. An idea formed. Risky. Possibly illegal. But I was out of options. We set a trap, I said. We use your evidence to force Cassidy into a corner where she has to admit the truth. But we need Tyler there to see it. That is the only way to break through her control. Derek looked skeptical. How do we do that? I spent the next hour outlining a plan. Derek would contact Cassidy from a burner phone, pretending he had more incriminating photos he would sell to the highest bidder. Photos showing Graham's face clearly that she would not want made public. We would demand $20,000. Set up a meeting at my late husband's old office building downtown. It had been vacant for months, awaiting demolition. Private. Controllable. Meanwhile, Derek would send an anonymous message to Tyler, telling him to be at that location at a specific time. Cryptic enough to make him curious, but not detailed enough to tip off Cassidy. She will come, I said. She will want those photos. And Tyler will come because he will wonder what his wife is doing there. And then what? Derek asked. Then we get her to confess. On camera. with Tyler watching. It was desperate and dangerous, and might land me in jail. But my son was married to a woman who had put another woman in the hospital, who was running a criminal enterprise, who was carrying a baby that might not even be real. I had to try. Derek left through my back door at midnight, taking the USB drive and his evidence with him. I sat alone in my dark house, listening to every creak and groan, wondering if Graham and Cassidy were watching my house right now. The next morning, I checked the news. Bethany Whitmore was in critical condition at a Wilmington hospital, having fallen down the stairs in her home. Police were investigating, but currently treating it as an accident. Her 2 young daughters were with social services temporarily. Fell down the stairs. The same way women had been murdered by their husbands for centuries, disguised as accidents. I called Derek. Tomorrow. We do this tomorrow before anyone else gets hurt. He agreed, his voice shaky but determined. We set everything up. Derek called Cassidy from a burner phone, using a voice changer app. He demanded $20,000 for photos that would destroy her. She agreed to meet at 2 o'clock the next day at the old office building on Walnut Street. Derek sent the anonymous tip to Tyler. Your wife is meeting someone at 1847 Walnut Street tomorrow at 2 p.m. It is not what you think, but you need to see this yourself. I spent that night unable to sleep, running through everything that could go wrong. Cassidy might not show up. Tyler might not come. Graham might come with her and turn violent. The police might arrest me for violating the restraining order. But I kept thinking about Bethany in the hospital. About Tyler trapped in a marriage built on lies. About the baby Cassidy claimed to be carrying. This had to end. Tomorrow. The old office building on Walnut Street stood empty and gray against the December sky, its windows dark. A demolition notice taped to the front door. Robert's law firm had moved to a newer building 5 years ago, and this place had sat vacant ever since, waiting for a developer who never came. Derek and I arrived at noon, 2 hours before the scheduled meeting. We set up his professional camera equipment in 3 locations, one hidden in the old reception area, one in the conference room where we would stage the meeting, one in the stairwell with a view of the entrance. All running on battery power since the electricity had been shut off months ago. Are you sure about this? Derek asked for the 10th time. I was not sure about anything, but I nodded anyway. At 1:55, a car pulled up outside. Tyler's sedan. He got out, looking confused and wary, staring at the building like he could not figure out why he was there. My heart clenched at the sight of him. 3 months since I had been this close to my son. Stay hidden, Derek whispered. We were in a storage closet off the main conference room. The door cracked open just enough to see through. Tyler walked into the building, his footsteps echoing on the old tile floors. Hello? Anyone here? Before he could explore further, another car pulled up. A black Lexus I did not recognize. Cassidy got out of the passenger side. Graham was driving. My stomach dropped. We had not anticipated Graham coming with her. They walked in together, and the dynamic between them was nothing like siblings. Graham's hand rested possessively on the small of her back. Cassidy leaned into him like she had done it 1,000 times before. Tyler's face went pale as his wife and her supposed brother entered the building. Cassidy? What are you doing here? I got a message that said, Tyler? Cassidy's shock looked genuine. She recovered quickly, but not quickly enough. Honey, what are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing. Tyler looked between his wife and Graham, confusion warring with dawning suspicion. I got an anonymous message telling me to come here, that you would be meeting someone. Graham stepped forward, blocking Tyler's view of Cassidy. Your mother is behind this. This is another one of her schemes. My mother? Tyler looked around the empty building. Is she here? Derek chose that moment to step out of the conference room, phone in hand. Nobody's mother is involved. You offered me $20,000 for these photos, Cassidy. I am here to make the exchange. Cassidy's face transformed. The sweet mask dropped away, leaving something cold and calculating underneath. You recorded our phone call. Obviously. That is illegal in Pennsylvania. One-party consent state. I know the law, Derek said calmly. I also know blackmail is illegal. Assault is illegal. Fraud is illegal. Should we compare crimes? Graham moved fast. He grabbed Derek by his jacket, slamming him against the wall. You do not know what you are messing with. Graham! Tyler's voice cracked with shock and confusion. What are you doing? This was spiraling out of control. I had to act. I stepped out of the storage closet. Mom? Tyler's voice was strangled. You are violating the restraining order. I am calling the police right now. Please do, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. Call them. Because Derek and I have enough evidence to put your wife in prison for the next decade. Cassidy smiled. Actually smiled. And who will believe you, Bria? The unstable woman with a psychiatric diagnosis and a restraining order? The photographer you paid to lie? This is pathetic. Tell him, I said, looking at my son. Tell Tyler who Graham really is. He is my brother. He is your husband. I turned to Graham. Let Derek go, unless you want to add assault to your charges. Graham released Derek but did not step back. Tyler looked sick. What are you talking about? Mom, you need to stop this. Show him, I said to Derek. Derek pulled out his phone, hands shaking slightly, and held it up so Tyler could see the screen. The marriage certificate. Graham Joseph Whitmore and Cassidy Ann Whitmore. Married 7 years ago in Maryland. Tyler stared at the image, then at his wife. That is fake. It has to be fake. It is real, Graham said. Everyone turned to look at him. Even Cassidy looked surprised. What are you doing? She hissed. I am done, Graham said, his voice cold. Bethany is going to wake up and talk. Your mother has recorded everything. It is over, Cassidy. I am not going to prison for you. The conference room fell into shocked silence. Tyler, Graham continued, his tone almost conversational. You want to know the truth? Your wife is my wife. We have been married for 7 years. This is what we do. We find marks. Rich guys. Lonely guys. Guys with family money. Cassidy seduces them, rushes them into marriage, and then we drain everything we can before disappearing. Shut up, Graham. Cassidy's voice was low and dangerous. Why should I? You told me Tyler would be easy, that we could get his trust fund in 6 months, that his mother was a pushover widow who would be grateful her son found someone. Graham laughed bitterly. But you did not count on Bria being smart, on her figuring it out. And now we are both screwed because you got sloppy. Tyler sank into one of the old conference room chairs, his face gray. You are married to him. This whole time. Tell him the rest, I said, my voice shaking with fury. Tell him about the baby. Cassidy's hand dropped from her stomach. The gesture was enough. There is no baby, Graham said flatly. Fake pregnancy test. She would have faked a miscarriage next month. Blame it on your mother's harassment, actually. Nice touch, that. Tyler made a sound like he had been punched. How many others? I demanded. How many men have you done this to? Graham shrugged. 6. 7 if you count the one who died before we could finish. Heart attack. Saved us the trouble of staging a disappearance. Oh my God, Derek breathed. Tyler looked up at his wife, his eyes glassy with shock. Everything was a lie? Everything? Cassidy's expression flickered. For just a moment, something almost like regret crossed her face. Then it hardened. You were so easy, Tyler. So desperate to be loved after Daddy died. I barely had to try. The cruelty in her voice made me flinch. Tyler just stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Derek smiled grimly. I called them before you got here. They have been listening to this entire conversation. I have 2 officers on speed dial from when I filed the report about Bethany. Cassidy lunged for the door, but Graham grabbed her arm. Where are you going to run? They know everything now. 2 police cars screeched to a stop outside. 4 officers poured into the building, hands on their weapons. Nobody move. What followed was chaos. Explanations and evidence, and Derek handing over his USB drive while Graham and Cassidy yelled over each other, each trying to blame the other first. The officers separated them, taking statements, examining the hidden cameras Derek had set up. Tyler sat motionless in that conference room chair while his entire life unraveled around him. I wanted to go to him, to hold him like I had when he was small and the world hurt too much. But I stayed back, giving him space to process the devastation. One of the officers approached me. "Mrs. Hammond, we need your statement. And I have to tell you, technically you are in violation of the restraining order by being here." "I know," I said. "Arrest me if you need to. But please make sure my son is okay first." The officer looked at Tyler, then back at me. "Let's get everyone's statements first. Then we will sort out the legal issues." It took 4 hours. 4 hours of statements and evidence review and phone calls to the FBI, because Graham and Cassidy had crossed state lines multiple times. 4 hours of watching my son's world collapse, while I could do nothing to help him. Finally, as the sun was setting, I saw Cassidy and Graham being led out in handcuffs, separate police cars. They would not meet each other's eyes. Tyler walked out of the building like a ghost. I followed at a distance, respecting the restraining order even though nothing made sense anymore. He stopped at his car, turned, looked at me. "Mom." It was the first time he had called me that in months. The first time without suspicion or pity or anger in his voice. I waited. "I am so sorry," his voice broke. "You tried to tell me. You tried to save me. And I called you crazy. I let her convince me you were the problem." The dam broke. We both started crying in that empty parking lot. And I did not care about the restraining order anymore. I closed the distance and pulled my son into my arms the way I had done when he was small and scraped his knee or lost a baseball game or had his heart broken. "It is okay," I whispered. "You are okay. We are okay. I lost everything, the house, the money, 3 months of my life. But you are alive, and free, and we can rebuild everything else." He held on to me like a drowning man, and I held him back, and I knew we would both be okay eventually. It would take time. There would be lawyers and trials and therapy and the hard work of healing, but we would do it together. The legal aftermath unfolded over the next several months, like a slow-motion avalanche. The FBI investigation revealed that Cassidy and Graham had been running their scheme for 6 years across 4 states. 7 victims. $412,000 stolen. Multiple false identities. Fake social media profiles. Manufactured backgrounds. Bethany survived her fall, though she faced a long recovery. When she woke up and heard that Graham had been arrested, she cried with relief. She divorced him immediately and started rebuilding her life with her daughters. Victim compensation funds helped her get back on her feet. Tyler had lost $43,000 before I intervened. His savings account emptied, credit cards maxed out in his name, a home equity loan on the house he had bought with Cassidy. It could have been so much worse. The trust fund from his father was still intact, protected by ironclad legal structures Robert had set up before he died. That was what Cassidy and Graham had really been after. They just had not gotten to it yet. Both Cassidy and Graham pleaded guilty. The evidence was overwhelming, and Derek's recordings captured everything. They each received sentences of 8 to 12 years in federal prison, plus restitution orders to all victims. The restraining order against me was dismissed within a week. All charges dropped. The defamation lawsuit withdrawn. The court apologized for the error in judgment, though their apology meant nothing compared to the 3 months I had spent fighting for my son's freedom. My reputation in the community was slowly restored. Janet brought over a homemade lasagna and cried on my doorstep. "I should have believed you. I should have listened." Patricia called every day for weeks, apologizing repeatedly. "You were the only one who saw clearly. I am so sorry I doubted you." My book club invited me back with flowers and apologies. Neighbors who had avoided me for months stopped by with baked goods and shame-faced explanations about how convincing Cassidy had been. I forgave them all. What else could I do? Cassidy and Graham had been professionals at manipulation. They had fooled everyone, not just my son. Derek's business actually improved after the case made national news. Articles called him the photographer who uncovered a criminal conspiracy. He was interviewed on local television, his story going viral on social media. The publicity brought him more clients than he could handle. He paid me back the $10,000 Cassidy had given him, plus interest, though I tried to refuse it. "You risked everything to help me," I told him. "And I almost let you drown because I was scared," he replied. "Take the money, please." Tyler moved back in with me temporarily. He sold the house in Cherry Hill, desperate to escape the memories of the life he thought he was building. For the first few weeks, he barely spoke. He went to work at his accounting firm, came home, and sat in his childhood bedroom staring at the walls. Depression wrapped around him like a heavy blanket. I got him into therapy with a specialist who dealt with trauma from intimate partner fraud. Slowly, painfully, slowly, he began to heal. He started talking about what Cassidy had done to him, how she had isolated him from me, how she had twisted every moment to make him doubt himself and doubt me, how she had used his grief over his father to manipulate him into a whirlwind romance. "I wanted so badly to be in love," he told me one evening over dinner. "I wanted what you and Dad had. And she knew that. She studied me like a target and figured out exactly what I needed to hear." "That is not your fault," I said firmly. "Professional con artists are good at what they do. That is why they are professionals. But I chose her over you. My own mother. She made you choose. That is what abusers do. They isolate their victims from anyone who might see through them." Our relationship changed after that. Deepened. Tyler had always been independent, moving out at 22, building his own life. But this experience showed us both how much we needed each other. How family, real family, fights for you even when you push them away. 6 months after Cassidy's arrest, I was interviewed by a local news station about elder abuse and financial scams. The story went national. I received messages from dozens of people who had been victims of similar schemes. I started speaking at community centers, sharing my story, warning people about the red flags I had missed initially. Tyler came with me to some of these talks. It was hard for him at first, admitting publicly what had happened. But he said it helped to turn his pain into something useful, to warn other people so they would not fall into the same trap. Bethany and I became genuine friends, bonded by shared trauma and survival. She and her daughters started joining us for Sunday brunch, the tradition Tyler and I had resumed. Watching those little girls laugh and play in my backyard, watching Bethany smile again, felt like victory. One Sunday morning, almost a year after everything fell apart, Tyler and I were making pancakes in my kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the windows. Birds sang in the backyard. Life felt normal again. Better than normal. "Dad would be proud of you," Tyler said, flipping a pancake with more confidence than skill. "You never gave up on me. Even when everyone said you were wrong." "That is what mothers do," I replied, stirring the batter. "We fight for our children. Always. I am going to spend the rest of my life making this up to you. You do not owe me anything. You are my son. That is enough." He hugged me then, and I remembered holding him as a baby, as a child, as a teenager struggling through first heartbreaks. I remembered Robert telling me that our job as parents was to love him no matter what, to be there when he fell, to help him get back up. We had done that. We were still doing that. The doorbell rang. Bethany and her daughters arrived, carrying fresh flowers from the farmer's market. Janet showed up with homemade muffins. Derek stopped by with new photos he had taken at a recent wedding, beautiful images of genuine love and happiness. My kitchen filled with people and laughter, and the smell of pancakes burning slightly because Tyler had gotten distracted. This was family. Not perfect, not without scars and pain and hard lessons learned, but real, true, built on love that survived the worst kind of betrayal. I looked around at these people who had fought alongside me, who had doubted me and then believed me, who had been hurt and healed and chosen to keep showing up anyway. I thought about Robert and how much he would have loved this moment. How proud he would be that Tyler and I had survived this storm together. The fight had been brutal. There were moments I wanted to give up. Moments I thought I had lost everything. But standing in my sunny kitchen, surrounded by my son and our chosen family, I realized the truth I had learned through fire. A mother's love is stronger than manipulation. Truth, no matter how buried, will eventually surface. And sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight within our own families, not against outside enemies, but to save the people we love from threats they cannot see. I had almost lost my son to a predator who wore a wedding dress and a sweet smile. But I got him back. That was what mattered. That was everything. Tyler was dating again now, slowly and carefully. He brought women to meet me early in the relationship. "If you do not approve, that is a red flag," he joked. But I knew he meant it. He trusted my instincts now. We both did. Sometimes you have to lose everything to understand what truly matters. Family, truth, love. The courage to stand alone when everyone says you are wrong. The persistence to keep fighting, even when the fight seems hopeless. I learned something else too. Communities can fail you. Systems can fail you. Even the people you love most can be turned against you by skilled manipulators. But if you hold on to truth with both hands, if you refuse to let go no matter how much it costs you, eventually that truth will set everyone free. Would I do it all again, knowing what I know now? Knowing the pain it would cause, the months of isolation, the financial cost, the risk? In a heartbeat, because my son is free. Because Cassidy and Graham cannot hurt anyone else. Because Bethany and her daughters have a chance at a real life. Because Derek found his courage. Because I learned that a 67-year-old widow still has the strength to fight dragons and win. The scars remain. Tyler still has nightmares sometimes. I still feel a flash of panic when someone questions my memory or judgment. But we are healing. Together. And that is the real ending to this story. Not the dramatic arrest, or the courtroom victory, or even the reconciliation. The real ending is Sunday morning pancakes and children's laughter, and my son finally trusting himself again. It is the quiet, steady rebuilding of lives that were nearly destroyed. It is choosing, every single day, to believe in love and family and truth even after betrayal tried to poison all three. That is the victory. That is what matters. So let me ask you something. Have you ever had to stand alone for a truth nobody else believed? Have you ever had to fight to protect someone you love, even when they pushed you away? What would you do if you discovered your loved one was being manipulated by someone dangerous? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Your story might help someone else who is struggling with a similar situation right now. And if this story resonated with you, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to this channel. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Someone who is fighting their own battle and needs to know they are not alone. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for believing me when I needed witnesses to my truth. I hope you never need the lessons I learned. But if you do, I hope you remember that mothers never give up. Truth never stays buried forever. And love, real love, survives everything. Take care of yourselves and each other. Hold your families close. Trust your instincts. And never, ever stop fighting for the people you love.